To ZIO press conference. Today, we are having a regular press conference on the data of economic performance. We are happy to be joined by Deputy Commissioner of the National Bureau of Statistics, NBS, Mr. Sheng Laiyun. We will invite him to introduce the national economic performance and take your questions. The floor is yours. Friends from the media, ladies and gentlemen, good morning. I'm very happy to be here again to communicate with all of you. I'm very happy to meet some old friends. As usual, I will first brief you on the first quarter national economic performance data and then take your questions. In the first quarter, the national economy made a good start. Under the strong leadership of the CPC Central Committee with Comrade Xi Jinping at its core, all regions and departments strictly implemented the decisions and the deployments made by the CPC Central Committee and the State Council, adhered to the principles of seeking progress while maintaining stability, establishing the new before abolishing the old, intensified efforts on micro-regulation, and continue to transform the growth model, make structural adjustments, improve quality, and enhance performance. Policies continue to take effects. Production and demands maintained stable and witnessed an increase. Employment and prices were stable, market confidence continued to rise, and high-quality development made new progress. The national economy continued the good momentum of rebound, kicking off a good start. According to preliminary estimates, GDP in the first quarter reached 29,629.9 billion yuan, up by 5.3% year-on-year at constant price, or up by 1.6% over that in Q4 of 2023 by industry. The value added of the primary industry was 1,153.8 billion yuan, up by 3.3%. Secondary industry, 10,984.6 billion yuan, up by 6%, and that of tertiary industry, up by 5%. Agricultural production witnessed good momentum, and animal husbandry grew steadily. The value added of agriculture witnessed an increase of 3.8%. The planting area of winter wheat remained stable. Spring farming and sowing were carried out in an orderly manner. The output of pork, beef, mutton, and poultry was 24.9 million tons, up by 1.4% year-on-year. Industrial out production has a rapid growth with rapid development in high-tech manufacturing. In the first quarter, the total value added of large enterprises grew by 6.1% by sectors. Mining industry went up by 1.6%, manufacturing up by 6.7%, production of electricity, thermal power, gas, and water up by 6.9%. Value added of high-tech manufacturing increased by 7.5%, which was 2.6 percentage points faster than that of Q4 of 2023. By types of ownership, value of state-holding enterprises was up by 5.2%, shareholding enterprises up by 6.5%, enterprises funded by foreign investors or investors from Hong Kong, Macau, and Taiwan up by 4.8%, private enterprises up by 5.4%. In March, the value added of large enterprises went up by 4.5% year-on-year. Third, service sector enjoyed sound momentum, and modern services grew fast. In the first quarter, the added value of service went up by 5%. The added value of information transformation, software and information technology services, lease and business services, transport and storage, and postal services, and wholesale and retail grew by 13.7%, 10.8%, 7.3%, 6% respectively. In March, the index of service production increased by 5% year-on-year. In the first 2 months, large service enterprises have their revenue increased by 12%, which was 3.7 percentage points faster than 2023. In March, the Business Activity Index for services went up by 1.4 percentage points than the previous month. Fourth, market sales registered stable growth and services consumption grew fast. In the first quarter, the total retail sales of consumer goods reached 12,032.7 billion yuan, up by 4.7% year-on-year. By different areas, the retail sales of consumer goods in urban areas went up by 4.6%, and that in rural areas up by 5.2%. By consumption patterns, retail sales of goods went up by 4%, income of catering went up by 10.8%, goods for basic living enjoyed good sales. The sales of some upgraded goods grew fast. The sales of sports and recreational articles and some communication equipments by large enterprises grew up by 14.2% and 13.2% respectively. The online retail sales went up by 12.4%. The online retail sales of physical goods went up by 11.6%. In March, the total retail sales of consumer goods went up by 3.1% year-on-year, or up by 0.26% month-on-month. Fifth, investment in fixed assets went up steadily, and investment in high-tech industries grew fast. In the first quarter, the investment in fixed assets reached 10,004.2 billion yuan, up by 4.5% year-on-year, which was 1.5 percentage points faster than the previous year. Investment in fixed assets went up by 9.3%. By sectors, infrastructure investment went up by 6.5%, manufacturing up by 9.9%, estate development down by 9.5%. The floor space of new commercial buildings sold went down by 19.4% year-on-year. The total sales of new commercial buildings went down by 27.6%. By industry, the investment in primary industry went up by 1%, secondary industry up by 13.4%, tertiary industry went up by 0.8%, private investment by 0.5%. Investment in high-tech industries grew by 11.4% year-on-year. Sixth, imports and exports of goods grew steadily, and trade structure continued to optimize. Seventh, consumer price was generally stable, and producer prices for industrial products dropped. For these two parts, we have released information. I will not repeat those contents. Eighth, employment was generally stable, and surveyed unemployment rate in urban areas declined mildly. In the first quarter, the urban surveyed unemployment rate averaged 5.2%, down by 0.3 percentage points over the same period last year. In March, the surveyed unemployment rate in urban areas was 5.2%, which was 0.1 percentage points lower than that of the previous month and of the same month last year. Surveyed unemployment rate of population with local household registration was 5.3%, non-local household registration 5.1%, and that of non-local agricultural household registration 5%. Enterprises employees worked on average 48.6 hours per week. In the first quarter, the number of rural migrant workers totaled 185.88 million, up by 2.2% year-on-year. Ninth, residents' income increased steadily, and income of rural residents grew faster than that of urban residents. In the first quarter, the nationwide per capita disposable income of residents has a nominal growth of 6.2% year-on-year. The real growth was 6.2%. The per capita disposable income of urban households has a nominal growth of 5.3% and a real growth of 5.3%. Per capita disposable income of rural households has a nominal growth of 7.6% and a real growth of 7.7%. In terms of income source, salary income, net business income, net property income, and net income from transfers grew by 6.8%, 6.8%, 3.2%, and 4.8% in nominal terms, respectively. The median of the per capita disposable income of residents was 9,462 yuan, with a nominal growth of 6.4%. Generally, in the first quarter, the national economy made a good start, accumulating positive factors and laying a solid foundation for achieving the annual goal. However, we should say that there are rising complexities and uncertainties in the external environment. We have not yet consolidated the foundation. In the next stage, we will follow the guidance of Xi Jinping thought on socialism with Chinese characteristics for a new era, fully implement the guiding principles of the Central Economic Work Conference and the 2 sessions, adheres to the principles of pursuing progress while ensuring stability, promoting stability through progress, and establishing the new before the old. We will foster a new development paradigm, follow new development philosophy, actively cultivate new quality productive forces, strengthen micro-regulation, boost economic vitality, prevent and diffuse risks, improve public expectation, consolidate and enhance the momentum for economic recovery and growth, and continue to effectively pursue higher quality economic growth and appropriately increase economic output. That is the major data for the national economic performance in the first quarter, and then I'd like to take your questions. Now the floor is open to questions. Please identify your news outlets before raising your questions.
谢谢主持人，我是凤凰卫视的记者。我们刚刚看到发布的数据，整体上来看，主要的经济指标在一季度。
With saying that the main indicators have good performance in the first quarter, how do you comment on the overall performance of national economy in the first quarter?
Thank you for the question. In Q1, indeed, we believe the indicators are quite impressive. All local governments and various departments have worked together to front-load macro policies. The effect of these policies are being delivered for the recovery of the economy. Solid progress has been made. I think I will talk mainly about 4 points. The first is sustained recovery. In Q1 this year, the economy sustained the momentum of growth. Since last year, indicators of production and demand are rebounding. If we look at production, I have talked to you about that the primary industry has grown by 3.3%, secondary 6%. Industrial production is growing faster than last year, 3.1 percentage points faster than last year, and 0.7 percentage points faster than the fourth quarter of last year. And the tertiary industry up by 5%. Contact-based services, including catering, transportation, and tourism, all recorded rapid growth. You all know that services grew quite rapidly last year since we adjusted COVID protocols. And with that, on that basis, services sector continued to grow this year. If we look at the demand, investment, consumption, and import and export, growth in all these areas are steady. As I talked to you about, investment grew by 4.2%. That was 1.2 percentage points faster than last year. Retail sales of consumer goods increased by 5%. Service-based retail sales increasing by 10%. Export grew by 5%. Import and export grew by 5%. And it recorded a new high since last year. So if we look at the overall demand, there is sustained recovery. We believe that both output and demand are growing in parallel. The second keyword is solid progress. We've made a good start. That is gauged mainly by our balance of payment, our CPI, etc. We know that we grew by 5.3% in GDP, and that was faster than Q4 last year. That was 5.2%. Employment was also good. Q1 survey unemployment was 5.2%, dropping by 0.3 percentage points than last year. A better employment indicates a better economy. CPI, an indicator of inflation. If we look at core CPI, barring food and energy, grew by 0.7%, relatively on par with the 4 quarters of last year. International balance of payment and international trade is also good. If we look at all these 4 macro indicators, we believe that Q1 economy is stable. That is why I said we have got off to a solid start. And the third keyword is making progress while maintaining stability. As we make progress on the quantity and growth rate of our economy, we are also improving the quality of our economy by pursuing high-quality development. There is new progress in innovation. Large enterprises, added value of these companies increased by 7.5%, 2.6 percentage points faster than last year. There is more coordinated development. That means more coordination in the supply side and demand side. Internal demand contributed to over 85% to GDP growth. Industrial demand and other demand are also improving. We're making new progress on green development. In Q1, energy intensity of GDP growth dropped by 0.1%. We are also making advancements on high-quality development. Export maintained a 5% growth. Export to Belt and Road partner countries increased by 5.5%. Residential income grew by 6.2%. All these statistics indicate that we are making progress on high-quality development. The fourth keyword is starting off on a solid footing. Because we have started off quite impressively, and we are making progress while maintaining stability, I would say that this is very good and solid footing. If we look at all the indicators, we see that the stability and balance of economic indicators and the market vitality is also being unleashed. Confidence of market entities is enhanced. The manufacturing PMI in March returned to expansionary territory, recording a 50.8 point in March. It also indicates a recovery of the economy. That said, we are still aware of the uncertain external environment, and domestically, we're at a key stage of transition. Confidence of market entities and the momentum for growth should be further boosted. Therefore, we need to continue to act on the important instructions by the CPC Central Committee and the State Council. We will step up to implement our macro policies, strengthen the foundation, and firm up market confidence in order to boost momentum for growth. That is how we will be able to consolidate growth momentum. Thank you. Next question, please. Thank you. We have noticed that CPI grew for 2 months in a row, but there was a slight drop in March, probably worse than the market expectation. What is the reason for that? Thank you. Thank you very much for your question. People are following very closely on the CPI. If we look at CPI in March, as you said, on quarter-to-quarter terms, there was a drop of 0.1 percentage point, and on year terms, it has increased by 0.7%. The reason for that is that post-Spring Festival, there is a seasonal drop in transportation and in food. This is the major cause for a relative drop of CPI. Because of the warm weather, there is sufficient supply of agricultural products, and that led to a 3.2% drop of food price. It dragged down 0.6 percentage points of the overall CPI. And post-Spring Festival, the cost of flight tickets and other means of transportation is also dropping. Non-food CPI caused around 0.3 percentage points decline of overall CPI. That means food and non-food factors have dragged down CPI in March. The second point I would like to make is that despite a slight drop in March, if we look at seasonal comparisons, CPI is still stable. Barring food and energy, the core CPI grew by 0.7%, on par with last year. As you know, Q4 last year, we saw negative CPI, and average CPI in Q4 last year was minus 0.3%. That is why on quarter terms, there is a relative increase of 0.3 percentage points of CPI. This is, we believe, commensurate with the growth of the economy. I believe this change is also structural and seasonal. Among all 8 categories in the CPI basket, we saw a 1.4 percentage points drop of food and 1.3 percentage point drop of transportation, while other prices, the clothes, education, and services, all recorded positive growth of CPI, especially on medical services and education, are both higher than 1.5%. That is why I said there are structural factors in the CPI trend. If we look at the future, our assessment is that the CPI will be rebounding on a relatively low basis because the economy is recovering. There is a rebound in aggregate demand. This is a very important factor contributing to the growth of CPI. In addition, price of certain agricultural products might change in the future, including hog production. There are also a number of consumption drivers during holidays, including the just concluded Qingming Festival or the upcoming Labor Day holiday. All these will contribute to a recovery of aggregate demand and will feed into CPI. So our overall assessment is that despite the low basis, CPI will increase in the future. Thank you. Next question, please. Our question is that we've noted that in Q1 the economy is quite impressive. Is it better than expectation? And what is the reason for that? Thank you.
In the first quarter, we have a GDP increase of 5.3%. This figure is better than many's expectation. But what I want to say is that first, GDP growth rate of 5.3% fits our realities. From the perspective of audition, 5.3% growth is mainly contributed by the rebound of industry and the improvement of service industry. In the first quarter, industry has an increase of 6%. An obvious growth compared with last year and the Q4 of 2023, because we have improvements in imports. Industries, thanks to a series of policies, have been rebounded, and we have expanded demand. According to preliminary estimates, in the first quarter, industries has a 6% growth, contributing to 37.3% of GDP growth, driving about 2 percentage points of GDP growth. For service industry, it contributes to a large amount of GDP growth because we have the Spring Festival, a very key point on a large base. The service industry continue to recover, especially contact-intensive service, and service consumption has rapid growth. The retail of services increased by 10%, which is 4 percentage points than products. You can see the reports during the Spring Festival. Whether it's the travels or the expenditure on travels, we have already resumed to the pre-2019 level. We have 34 percentage points of growth in travel expenditure. So the services has also maintained a good momentum of growth, contributing to 55.7% of GDP growth. So industries and the services together contributed to over 93% of GDP growth. So these are the main contributors, and it fits our reality. Second, I want to say that 5.3% of GDP growth has its support. Our estimates is based on production and is testified through expenditure. From the 3 main indicators, which are all steadily pick up, we have 4.2% growth of investment in fixed assets. Retail of products and services have an average growth of 6%. On all the three demand indicators, it fits the demand and expenditure. Also for physical goods, we also have great growth figures. You are the observers of China's economy. You want to testify the performance with electricity and shipping volume and so forth. We have the total electricity growth of 9.7%, industrial electricity usage up by 7.7%, and shipping volume went up by 5.3%, passenger volume went up by 20%, and port capacity went up by 6.1%, which is a direct indicator for exports. As for the loans of bank, we have a loan of 8.7% of M2 currency. They all fit with the 5.3% growth of GDP. We also noticed that there are some imbalanced features in our economic recovery. Our estimates is for all the industries, and it reflects the total situation. From the recovery, we can see that consumption recovers faster than production. Micro and small enterprises recovers faster than large enterprises. So there are some imbalance factors in the production, so that you may have different feelings towards these figures. In the future, we will continue to consolidate the momentum of a recovery and growth, and we will pay more attention to the imbalance of development and pay more attention to micro and small enterprises.
谢谢主持人。21世纪经济报道记者提问。刚刚盛局长也提到那个一季度工业恢复的状况。
You mentioned that industries recovers really fast in the first quarter. What's your comment on the overall recovery of industries, and what's your prediction for its future development? Thank you for your question. Industry is a highlight for the economic recovery in the first quarter. The industry has a growth of 6%. It's a good figure compared with the past several months and even several years. It's 0.7 percentage points faster than Q4 of last year, demonstrating momentum of recovery and growth. The reason why industry performs better than our expectation are the following. First, enterprises have greater confidence under the policy. The central departments and localities have issued a series of policies and measures to support the development of real economy. Different localities have been implementing these policies at a faster pace, which boost their confidence, improve their development environment, and have produced positive effects. In March, the PMI was 50.8 point, up by 1.7 point compared with last month. Especially large, middle, and small enterprises all have their PMI above 50 point. It's not easy to achieve this. Second, internal and external demand have recovered. Since the world economy is growing, our exports in the first quarter performed better than expectation. We have a 1.5% in last year. Our figure on exports was minus 0.8 points. In terms of internal demands, we pay great attention to the production of consumer goods. Consumers would like to buy goods. Last year, the growth was about 1%, a relatively low level. In the first quarter, the growth rate was 4.2%. We can feel that both external and internal demands are recovering, supporting the growth of industry. Third, the growth of industry is closely related to the implementation of policies, including large-scale equipment renewal and the trade-in of consumer goods. The policies issued by the central government, to a large extent, have boosted enterprise confidence. Some enterprises have taken actions. Another reason is the cultivation of new drivers. In the first quarter, large enterprises have their value added of 7.6% for high-tech manufacturing, driving 2.3 percentage points of industrial growth. New growth drivers and new industries have been playing an important role. Of course, we have a large base from last year. In the first quarter of last year, we are still affected by the pandemic. But this year we have a large base. But mainly the reasons are the above mentioned three reasons. Now we have a better industrial base. We have several positive factors, and these factors will continue to take effect in the future. And the recovery of industry will continue. These foundations need to be further consolidated, and we will strengthen support for real economy.
Good morning. A question from Reuters. Some March economic indicators such as foreign trade, credit and commodity prices show weak economic growth and insufficient aggregate demand. What are the reasons for this? And will a slowing global economy and a higher statistical base later in the year jeopardize hitting this year's growth target of around 5%? Thank you.
请翻译一下。
路透社记者提问：3月份一些主要数据如外贸、信贷和物价等显示经济增长乏力，总需求不足，背后的原因何在？是否会影响中国实现5%左右的增长目标？谢谢。
谢谢你提问啊，这是个。
Thank you for the question.
大家可能也观察到是吧？3月份经济运行的一些。
You have probably noticed that
跟1、2月份比来讲是有所回落的。
There is a slight decline of some economic indicators. From a statistical standpoint, we have analyzed the reasons behind. An important reason is that the high base effect of last year. But if we look at the data for the month, it was still quite impressive. We know that last year, some regions are still under the impact of COVID, especially in January and February. Some of the orders are postponed to March last year. So March and April of last year both recorded a relatively high base in terms of industrial production. The production and sales of goods of last year was quite impressive because of the high base effect. So if we calculate year-on-year growth rate of March, we might see a slight decline because of that high base effect. If we look at the added value of industrial output, and if we use the added value of all working days, per working day, we see an added value of 146.6 billion RMB yuan. If we apply that method to January and February, we see 137.9 billion RMB yuan on average. That means in March, we see a better statistics in terms of per working day added value of industrial production than the average of the first 2 months of this year. If we look at the industrial use of electricity on a daily basis, there's a slight increase of 1.2 percentage points in March than January and February. Shipping of goods and loans also saw similar trends. If we are to look at Chinese economy, we need to focus both on quarter-on-quarter terms in addition to year-on-year statistics. This is the first point I would like to make. The second point is that people are following very closely the future trend of China's economy, whether we are able to meet the 5%, around 5% per growth. We think that there are increasing favorable conditions for us to meet that goal. We see improvement in external demand despite the complicated international circumstances and high uncertainties. Leading indicators are still quite encouraging, suggesting a recovery in global economy. Globally, we see PMI at 50.6. I have also noticed that statistics of WTO on the shipping of goods, there might be an increase of 2.6% this year. That is much better than the negative statistics last year. Domestically speaking, many indicators suggest a rebound of China's indicator, including the PMI in March, as I said just now, and also indicators of demand. All these, coupled with the implementation of macro policies, will be able to take us to better outcomes. To expand domestic demand, we roll out policies to support trade-in of consumer goods and equipment renewal. This will create momentum for a recovery. Holiday-induced economic growth will also lead to a better indicator. We believe that the economy will sustain its growth momentum. Finally, in addition to the aggregate figures, we also need to put more emphasis on the improvement of efficiency, efficacy, and quality, especially the progress we have made thus far in structural adjustment of the economy. Since the 18th CPC National Congress, we have been moving toward a higher quality development model. This is a new development stage. Traditional industries are being upgraded while we are nurturing new growth models. This is how we drive high-quality development. Despite the challenging international landscape and the sore spots in our domestic industrial upgrade, we remain committed to high-quality development and to industrial upgrading. A number of figures for your reference. If we look at innovation-based development, the share of R&D expenditure in GDP was 6.3% last year, an increase from 2.9% the year before last. The added value of high-tech sector increased by 1 percentage point annually. Urbanization rate was 66% last year, higher than the 65% figure than the year before last. Export share of overall economy was 14% now, an increase from 10% before. This means we are doing better in terms of coordinated, innovative development for shared benefits. We are seeing better quality in our development. We're still at a critical stage, I would say, in transition. Some companies or enterprises face the need of upgrading. It might be a painful process for these companies. There might be fluctuations as we are shifting from old growth model to new growth model, but the quality of our development is being enhanced. This is the foundation for a recovery of the Chinese economy. A recovery is not just about the growth rate, but also about the quality of the growth. This offers a more comprehensive perspective in assessing China's economy and will boost confidence. For me, I'm confident to see a high-quality development of the Chinese economy. Thank you. My question is on the property market. Some local governments have rolled out policies to support the delivery of pre-sold housing. How do you see the future of the property market? Thank you. You are following closely the development of the property market. investment in the property sector, the sales of the sector in Q1 is not very optimistic. This sector is still undergoing a transition. There are a few points I would like to make. First, sales of real estate in Q1 can be attributed in part to high base effect. As I said, March last year saw rapid growth in real estate sales by floor area or by value. There was around 138 million square meters in terms of sales by floor space. In March this year, the figure was around 113 million square meters. That was 2,500 square meters less than last year. That said, if we compare the monthly statistics of property sales since the second half of last year, the sales this year in March is higher than all 6 months in 2023. The slight decline of the property market is attributed in part to high base effect. The second point you made was the effect of policies to support the real estate sector. We're working on 3 major projects. We put this forward last year. The central government is encouraging local governments to step up building of affordable housing. This will lead to a new development model in the property market. These 3 major projects have contributed to 0.6 percentage points of the growth in the real estate sector. The whitelist has supported the disbursement of loans that will help the financing needs of companies. That is why we released a wide list of companies that are able to access financing. In Q1, loans to the property developers, despite the decline, we see a narrower decline of these loans. When we look at sales, local governments are supporting the stability of the real estate sector, including relaxing restrictions on purchasing and lowering the home provision ratio. And also there is the policy of trade-in of real estate in some cities. Sales by floor space or value. The decline in the sales by floor space and value were both narrowed by 1.1 percentage points and 1.7 percentage points respectively. That means the supportive measures are taking effect. We need to see from a more rational standpoint the upgrading of the property sector. I shared with you my view last year. On one hand, We need to see that after 20 years of rapid expansion,
按照产业是吧成长周期来看，它进入这种调整。
it is now entering a cycle of readjustment. This is a normal thing. This cyclical transition will enable China's property sector to move toward higher quality development. We are clearing the risks so that property developers will provide better housing and better services. This will be good news for our citizens. On the other hand, there's strong underpinning for China's property market because China is still in the process of urbanization. 66.2% of urbanization rate. If we look at household-based urbanization rate, it was less than 50%. There are 180 to 190 million migrant workers who are yet to earn permanent residential permit. Less than 1/3 of them are renting a house. The inventory of housing, smaller housing, those that are less than 90 square meters, account for the most of the housing. As people desire better living standards and better housing needs, there will be strong demand for development of the property market. I encourage you to have more confidence because there is a strong underpinning for the development, sustained development of China's property market. We need to take a more rational view. Thank you very much. My question is on 5.3%. You said that this is better than expectation. Does it mean that there is stability in the economy and there won't be stronger measures to support the economy? Or do you think there are still weak spots in the economy, for instance, an imbalance in recovery? And the second question is on the industrial output in March. It is still weaker than expected. Does it mean that there are problems in the manufacturing sector? Thank you for the question. I believe that I have, in a way, responded to this question already. The fluctuation in industrial output in March is, on one hand, attributed to the changes in the international landscape and also to the domestic transition. We need to see a stronger momentum for industrial output. And the second factor is the high base effect that I just mentioned. We are still optimistic about the industrial output going forward. On the foundation for recovery, this 5.3% GDP growth indicates a sustained recovery and a strong start this year. As I've explained to you just now, this recovery of the economy and of the performance of different sectors, there is a certain degree of imbalance. Consumption goods and industrial output, the growth in these two sectors is still slightly lower than the average, and there is imbalance in different regions. The traditional sectors, as a result of the slowdown in the property sector, is picking up more slowly. But high-tech manufacturing, as I said, was increasing by 7.5%. higher than 1.5 to 1.6% of the average in the industrial sector, and this is a main contributor to the growth of the overall industrial output. There is indeed an imbalance in the recovery, and there is a certain degree of divergence, but this is normal. As I said, we are now at a new stage of upgrading of the economy, and this transition means that traditional sectors should readjust themselves, and emerging sectors are seeing quite impressive performance. The policy going forward will be stepped up to support the real economy. And in addition to the focus on the aggregate economy, we also need to focus on the structural factors and nurture emerging industries with a particular focus on innovation. We also need to work on the upgrading of traditional industries and strike a balance between the traditional industries and the emerging industries. Thank you.
这边第3排这位记者。
谢谢主持人，我是中华儿女报刊社。第5次这个全国经济普查是一项重大
The
的
fifth
国情国力调查。
census of
请
the
问盛局长，
national
现
economy
场登记工作进展如何？
is important was the
如何保护
progress
古今谱数据的质量？
on the on-site data collection and how to ensure the quality of the data.
Thanks for your question, and thank you for your attention on the National Economic Census. The 5th National Economic Census is the first large-scale national census in the new era and based on the current conditions, under the strong leadership of governments on all levels, and with the joint efforts of workers on different levels. The 5th National Economic Census has been advanced steadily. We have basically completed on-site data collection, and now over 90% of the data have been reported. So from the overall arrangement of work, we are turning from on-site data collection and registration to data review and the inspection of data quality and the collection and gathering of data. We will release the result of this census in the 3rd quarter of this year so that you can learn about China's economic situation comprehensively. On data quality, we lay great importance on data quality, which is the basic requirement for a census and the precondition for a high-quality census. This is our goal and a requirement for our work. At the beginning of this census, we followed the statistics law and the regulations on economic census. We have formulated a system and several measures to manage data quality. And during the census process, we've strictly followed regulations to carry out our work. We've strengthened training for enumerators so that they can better perform their duties. During the census process, we also have inspection system to ask them faithfully register all the data and report the data while collecting the data. So now we are still in the process of data review and collection. We will further examine and review the data collected If there's problems discovered, we will return those data to the enterprises to ask the enterprises to check them. We will also have sample tests of about over 1,000 people. We will have professional inspectors to re-examine the data on site to check the quality of on-site data collection. So we have a complete set of measures to manage and control the quality of data. At the same time, we will protect the data of enterprises, including self-employed households. So please be assured and faithfully register your data. We welcome social supervision, and we hope that our friends from the media can continue to support our work. Thank you. My question is on developing new quality productive forces. In the first quarter, we can see that what's the performance of green development, green industry, high-tech industry, and other industries that supports the development of new quality productive forces. As you mentioned, the central government attaches great importance to the development of new quality productive forces. The Central Economic Work Conference and the Government Work Report both have comprehensive deployments on developing new quality productive forces. All regions and departments attaches great importance and have issued a series of measures to support innovation and support enterprises in cultivating new quality productive forces. From the first quarter data, we can see that relative policies and measures are taking positive effects. The development of new quality productive forces have achieved good results in some industries, some products, and some operation activities. I have some numbers to share with you. From new industries, emerging industries are growing faster. High-tech industry has their value added of 7.5%, which was 2.6 percentage points than Q4 of last year. High-tech service industry maintained fast growth. Information technology and software services has 13.7% of growth, which was 3.3 percentage points faster than the Q4 of last year. New products are being cultivated at a faster pace. You mentioned electric vehicle. On the basis of fast growth over the past few years, in the first quarter, its growth rate was 29.2%. Lithium battery has a growth rate of about 20%. PV-related products have a growth rate of about 50%. Robots have a growth rate of 26.7%. Semiconductors, 5G base station, 3D printing devices all have a double-digit growth. New products have been emerging and maintaining a fast growth. Third, new business models are emerging with good momentum. Internet of Things, big data are being applied and developed, which lead to the transformation of production models. Recently, you can see that live streaming commerce, just in time delivery and retail, are very popular.
网上商品零售额
The
这个
online
增速是反映新业态
sales
发展变化的，一
reflects
季度是增长
the
11.6%。
changes and transformation of business models. In the first quarter, its growth rate is 11.6%, maintaining a double-digit growth
第四个方面就是
over years.
是吧？新基建、
Fourth,
新
on
投
new
资、新基建
infrastructure and new
是
investment,
吧呈现良好的发展势头。
we've seen good
刚才发布
momentum
数据中
of
间做后面
development.
数据表中间有一个高继续产业投资，增长
Investment
11.4%，
in high-tech industry
去年提升1个
increased
百分点。
by
高
11.4%,
继续服务
which
业的投
was
资
1 percentage
增长是
point faster than last year.
12.7%。
Investment in
另外呢，一
high-tech
些一批新的
service
基建加快
increased
落
by
地，包括基
12.7%.
站
We
基
have
站一季度
established
是1至2月份有
more
个数据
and
3
more
月份数据还没
high-tech
看到，1至2月份
infrastructure.
的数据是
For
新增
5G base
13万
station, we have
5G 基站，现在总量是超过350万。
over 130,000 new 5G base stations and reached
还有是
a
东
total
数
of
西
over
上
3.5
是
million.
光纤通讯等一些新的这种基础设施。
As for new technological
还有一个数据
facilities,
是
we
大家
have
关注的
been
数字经济方面，
establishing them
因为
faster.
数字经济是新质生产力的一个重要的
Digital economy
一个方面。
is an
中央
important
各个地
aspect
方
for
高度重视
cultivating new
数字
quality
经济发展，
productive forces. And the
加
central
快推
government
进
and local
产业数
government
字化和数字
attaches
产
great
业化。
importance to the development of
我
e-commerce.
们有一个这个核算的数据是2022年的核算的数据，
In
是
2022,
核心产业增加值
the value added of
现在
core
是
industry
是11.4万亿，占 GDP 比重
was
是
114,000
那么新的一个数据我们正在核算，
billion,
估计
accounting for
2023年核心产业核心的
9.4% of
数
the
字产业
GDP.
的增加值
We are now
总量会超过
calculating
12万亿，
the new
占 GDP 的比
set of
重
data.
会有可能会超过
It is
10%。
expected
如果超
to
过50%，那么我们占
exceed
GDP 比重
12 trillion
跟美
and
国
accounting for
核心
over
产业增加值
10%
占
of the
GDP 比重
GDP,
这个是比较接近的，比较接近。
which will
但
lead
规
us
模上它
closer
确实是
to
有
the
差别，
proportion
但
of
是
the
占 GDP
US.
比重是这个方面是吧？两者相差不大。
Its proportion in
所以从这几
GDP
个数据
will get
方面
closer to the
方面的数
figure of
据
the US.
可以看到，
From
新
these
质生
figures,
产
we
力
can see that new quality
因为
productive
在各个地
forces
方的高度重视下，在企业
are
在这种
being
转型升级
cultivated
过程之中，
amid
在
the
不断地
transformation
培育
and
发展。
upgrading of
下一
enterprises.
步呢，我们觉得我们要继续加快
Going forward,
和发展
we
新质生产
will
力，因为它是
develop
中国经济转型
new quality
和高
productive
质量发
forces
展的
at a faster
最大的动
speed
力，
because
也
it
是
is
最
the
好的抓
biggest
手。
driver
所以
and
我们
the best
一定要
leverage for achieving
求
high
好
quality
要因地
economic
制宜，
development. We will make
在做好
coordinated
传统
efforts
产业继续改造升
and
级的基
base
础，加
on
快培育新兴产业，
local conditions
做大
to
做强
cultivate
新质生
emerging
产
and
力。
future industries while upgrading traditional industries.
时间关系，我们最后两个问题吧。因为
Last
后
two
面是
questions.
对，第五排。
谢谢主持人，我是澎湃新闻记者。一季度工业生产者出产价格延续了
We
去
can
年
see
以来的
that
走低
the
态势
producer
房地
prices
产的改善也并不明显。
are
那
still
么请
going
问
low in
如
the
何
first
判断
quarter.
当前 PPI 的
How do you view the
那对下
PPI
阶段的
operation currently, and what's your prediction
谢谢你
for
提问。
the next stage?
这个在发布的众多向好指标中间，
Among
这个 PPI 的数据确实是
the auto indicators released
不
today,
的音符啊。
PPI might not be
其
so
他的
encouraging.
相比较来讲，确实我们需要高度关注。所以你
Therefore,
这个数据也非常好。
It merits our special
PPI
attention.
是工业品市场价格，今年的一季度的数据是负
On Q1,
7，
PPI
它的降幅实际上是跟去年
was
是
minus
2.7% 是一样的。 所以我想说
That's
的
the
是一点
same
看
of
法就是说
with Q4 last year.
从这个这一轮 PPI 的调整和走势来看，我们觉得就是
The
说
trend
是
of the PPI
工业品市场价格 PPI 这个开始呈现去降幅收窄的这样一个
suggests that there is a narrower
为什么
decline.
这么说？我们可以把时间的跨度放长一点。
If we look further back,
市场价格 PPI 调整是从2022年的10月份开始。
the
2022年
PPI, the trend of this PPI might start from October of 2022, that was minus 1.3%. It was then caused by an aggressive rate increase and an increase in global energy price. And the drop continued to be expanded. And June last year was the trough of the PPI data, that was minus 5.4%. And since June last year, as China's economy recovers, the decline of the PPI continued to narrow. Q1 this year, minus 2.7%, and Q4 last year was also minus 2.7%. The 18-month PPI, if we draw a curve, this is a standard V-shaped curve of PPI trend. This is broadly consistent with China's rebound in economy. The second point is on structure. The Q1 PPI, especially PPI in March, demonstrate structural characteristics. In addition to the relatively insufficient demand, upgrading of certain industries, and a decline in costs are all important factors causing a drop of the PPI. So a multitude of factors resulted in the PPI decline. In terms of the sector, we also need to look at what are the industries causing this drop in PPI. The top three is coal, development and washing. The price dropped by 15% in Q1. This probably contributed to 10% drop of PPI. The second is non-metal, including cement. A decrease of that, they recorded a decrease of 8%, resulting in around 15% of PPI. The third sector is metal refinery and pressing. Steel, most notably, recorded a 10.5% decrease in price, resulting to around 15% of the PPI decline. So these top three industries in total led to 40% decline of PPI. All of them, the decline in these sectors can be attributed to the upgrade of industries because there is a realignment of the industrial chain. The realignment of PPI is caused mainly by the readjustment of certain industries. The third point is on the future trend. Our prediction is that PPI will record narrower decline and will gradually pick up. The aggregate demand is increasing thanks to a recovery of the economy. It will drive up the prices. Moreover, the policy effect will have an important impact on the price, especially large-scale equipment renewal and trade-in of consumer goods. Delivery of this policy will have a positive impact on relevant industries. In addition, structural adjustments in certain industries as we are moving ahead with the supply-side structural reform, this will also create positive spillovers to PPI. I'm sure that you also know that there's tail raising factor, and tail raising factor or carryover effect led to minus 2.3% in Q1 of PPI. Only 0.4% decrease was because of this year. The carryover effect will be narrowed by 1.4 percentage points. This will lead to a much narrower decrease in PPI. The changes in prices is directly related to the market sentiment. There is still high uncertainty, but I believe the trend PPI will be trending upward because this is in line with China's economy. Thank you. My question is on consumption. What are the highlights in Q1? The number of trips made and expenditure made both recorded double-digit growth compared with 2019. What are the supporting factors going forward?
Thanks for your question. Changes in consumption is also a good area in the economic performance in Q1. We have several highlights. The total retail has a 10.7% growth, and we have faster growth in a number of products. The steady growth of consumption is an important underpinning for economic growth. Just as I've mentioned, internal demand contributed over 85% of the GDP growth, and consumption contributed over 73% of GDP growth. So consumption is an important supporting factor for the GDP growth. So what are the positive changes and what are their features? First, consumption of physical goods are generally stable. The total retail of consumer goods has a growth of 4.7% in Q1, totaled over 12 trillion yuan, which is a relatively high level. From the consumer's consumption of physical goods, including food, articles of daily use, and other pillar consumptions, they are generally stable with a 6 to 8% of growth. For their food consumption, it is generally stable. Second, service consumption grew fast. The ratio of services have a 10% of growth, which is 4 percentage points higher than the consumption of products. Consumer consumption of services of the residents were 12.7%. Residents' consumption of services accounting for 43.3%, which was 1.6 percentage points higher than last year. Third, online consumption remains strong. The total ratio of physical goods of online consumption has a 11.6% of growth, and with new technologies, we have new models of online sale, bringing new records of online consumption and sales. Fourth, upgraded consumption continues to grow. Now we have successfully solved the problem of feeding our people and achieved a moderately prosperous society. Now people have greater needs for better lives. This is in line with the growing consumption of services, including traveling, education, high-quality elder care, and other consumption patterns. The consumption of education, culture, and sports have a growth of 14.2%. The sales of vehicles increased by 13.2%. The traveling expenditure and expenditure of sports and recreation, medical care, all have a double-digit growth, meaning that consumption upgrading demonstrates a good momentum. Holiday consumption is flourishing. You can see from the internet that whether it's the Spring Festival or the Tomb Sweeping Festival, the travels, the expenditure has exceeded the level of 2019 with a double-digit growth. Many areas have been creating their brands from the south to the north and from the east of China to the west of China, driving holiday consumption and greatly supporting the recovery of services and the economy. Another feature is the green consumption philosophy. Now people pursue a greener way of travel and consumption. New energy vehicles have their sales grown, while traditional cars have their sales dropped. According to the data from Automobile Association, in the first quarter, sales of new energy vehicles went up by over 30%. According to latest data, the new electric vehicles grew by 41.7%, which was 1.7 percentage points faster than last year, reflecting the vitality of services and demonstrating new trends in this era. In the future, we are still accumulating positive factors to support consumption. with policy
尤其是包括
stimulus,
这个消费品以旧换新这个政策，
especially
产生一些
the trading of consumer goods, which will produce positive effects.
都在打这个消费的品牌，
Different localities
改
are
善
now
消费
building
条件，
their
营
brands,
造有利于居
improve
民消费的环境，
conditions and
经济
environment.
也在这个持续的回暖。
Our economy is
那
picking
么
up.
居民的消费收入在增加，就业在改善，
Residents'
消费的
incomes and
就业增强，
employment
消费的
are
能
being
力
improved.
消费
They now have
对消费
better
的信
capacity
心
to
也在
consume
也
and
在
a greater
不断
confidence
地这种回
to
升
consume.
回升，所以总的来讲，我觉得是综合这些有利的
Generally speaking, with all the
未来的消
above
费
mentioned positive factors,
市场还是持续看好。尤其
we
是
have
中国是
confidence in
人口
future
众多，
consumption
消费
and the market
具有
because
规模优势，
we have
所以
a
庞大的
large
这种
scale
市场的
of
潜力，
market.
消
We
费的
have
潜力
huge market
也是
potential,
中国
huge
经济
consumption
持
potential,
续稳定向好的这种压舱。
which are all anchors
当
for
然我们
China's
是吧，
sustained economic growth.
也要注意到，消费最终还是要靠收入做支撑的。
But in the end,
现在的
consumption is
收入的增长
underpinned by
虽然
incomes.
是吧，也是在回升。
Although the
但是这
growth of
几年
incomes
是吧，这个受疫
is
情冲击的
picking
影
up,
响，
but due to
这个收入是吧，这个
the pandemic in the past few
还需要
years,
水平还需要能力，还需要继续
we need to further
提高。
elevate
消费者的信
residents'
心
incomes
虽然是
and
连续
consumers'
几个月是在回
confidence.
升，但是总的消费者信心指数还在临界值以下，所以这些
The overall
不
confidence
利性因素
of
提
consumers
醒我们
is
是吧
still
还是
below the
要
turning
加大经
point.
济回稳向加强经济回稳向好的
We
基
need
础
to
增强
continue to
居民消费的
strengthen
能力
the foundation
和
for
信
economic
心
recovery,
这是吧，这个一项
elevate
长期的任务，长期任务。
consumption
但是对
confidence,
未来的消费
which is a long-term
持续向
task.
好的这种态势发展的前景，
But
是
for
乐
the
观的。
sustained growth of consumption,
谢谢
I
局长
still
各
have
位记者朋友
confidence.
们今天的新闻发布会就到这里。
Thank you.
那
This is the end of today's press conference.
谢谢各位。
谢谢主持人。
Thank you, Mr. Moderator.